In this video, we're going to talk about some of the operations that had to be done to troubleshoot belt setups. The belts by far have been the most difficult aspect of this setup because it's sandwiched between the cloak and the top shirt. And so you've got to deal with collisions as well as long straps in general just are difficult dealing with energy oscillations through long straps because the energy doesn't have any place to dissipate except for further on down the strap. So you get wobbles and get vibrations, etc. So let's take a look at some of these experiments I did to try and stop these problems from happening. As we're iterating over the belts here, I keep running into this very simple problem here, and that is the little strap kind of separates from the big strap up here. And at frame 1024, when the elbow goes back, it pulls the big strap, but not the little strap. And then when we move forward a few frames, you can see that it's about to slip underneath here. If we slide one more frame, you can see it's about to slide in right there. And then now it goes under the shirt right here, and it's kind of stuck there. And it kind of stays stuck there because of this shirt and this lapel of the jacket. So what we have to do to probably fix this is to set up some kind of stitch or attraction to the top of this lapel here for this little strap so that we can keep it floating above. So when it goes, it kind of follows with the big strap, because the big strap actually stays where it needs to stay, and then the little strap gets trapped under here. Yeah, that's one of the major problems that we're having right now with this sim. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can figure out a way to do that by putting a little stitch between the top shirt and the little strap just to make sure that it kind of follows along with it. Okay, here we are at the output of all of the combined meshes, and in between the vellum unpack and the solver, I'm going to go ahead and add a velcon, a vel constraint, and this one's going to be a stitch. And what I'll do is I'm going to go back to each one of these, and I'm going to paint an area on the inside of this strap here, and I'm going to paint a sort of a value on the top of this top shirt where I want them, so there'll be a source and a target. So I want the source to be the top shirt and the target to be the small strap. Here we are on the attribute paint on the top shirt, and I've referenced in the straps so that we can see where they are so that we can try this experiment. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter here. This will be small strap, strap, stitch, attach. Stitch source, SRC. It's going to be a weak stitch, but I'm just going to try and keep it in its general zone here. I'm just going to leave it as is right now. If I need to smooth it later, I will, but let me go ahead and get it across the shoulder here. Okay, so I want this strap to kind of stay above and near this thing, so I'm going to try and stitch it. So we'll move over to the small stitches here and paint an area on that. I'm sorry, on the small strap, we will paint an area on that. Okay, on the attribute paint here for the chest straps, we're going to add another attribute. We're going to call it small strap stitch target. Okay, on the underside of the small stitch here, we'll just paint a small amount just on one side. We don't want to do volume, so we'll switch to surface here. Just flip on the other side here, just in this little area here, and control drag on the other side here to remove. Get a smaller brush size here. We'll just switch to the nearest point brush. Just paint certain points here. Okay, so now that we have these values, let's go down to our combine. And this might take a second because it's got to evaluate everything, so I'm just going to go back here and hit pause for a second. Okay, there we go. Let's turn off guide geometry, and let's say, so our source group, we're going to pick points. Okay, so we'll put at small strap underscore stitch underscore source is greater than 0.0001. Copy and paste that into the target section here, change it to points. And we should see, change that to TGT for target, and there we go. Okay, we don't want the strength to be that high. Let's start with something, say, I don't know, 0.00001. That ought to be a good starting point. Let's give that a shot. And to that end, I think I might have to go back and remove some of the, I had put some animation value here in our pin to target constraint. I had painted some value so that it would stay here. I think that's going to compete with this because in some spots I think that it actually goes under, so it's actually trying to stay there, which means I could go back and actually fix this in animation and kind of lift this up in this problematic frame and then come back and do this. So there's many ways to fix this. I'm going to try it in sim first. If that doesn't work, then I'll go back to animation and create a new version of the Olympic where I'm actually keying these frames to pull them out, and then I'll paint to animation so that the problematic frames won't exist. But I really don't like to do in-shot fixes, shot-specific fixes that way. I'd rather have some kind of sim response that can handle most situations. Okay, so let me go ahead and sim a few frames of this and make sure that it's working, and we'll get back to this. Okay, here's an update on the latest saga known as the belts. So I put a little stitch on the little belt just to keep it out, and it looks like it worked pretty well. The little belt right here is staying on top of the lapel. It doesn't look too non-clothy. It's still simming, so I'm going to let it go. But the other areas that have kind of cropped up here are the sword strap. You can see is kind of falling under the cloak. So I'm going to give the sword strap the same stitch solution that I gave here, and then run another sim and see what we get. Okay, just catching up here with the latest on this sim, the latest of the belts. So it's looking a lot better, and the little strap isn't going in at all, which is nice. We are getting some problems right in here though, right after the jump and the run and they come to a halt here. The belts look like they're getting kind of snagged here, and I think it's because there's this sort of same reason that there was up here. There's sort of this flap open for things to fly into, and there's a flap here where these parts are kind of flipping around. So on our top shirt originally we have a stitch that kind of holds these pieces together. I think I'm going to go ahead and add another one down here to kind of keep it together down here a little bit more. That way we don't have a way, it's more of a single piece of mesh rather than a second piece of mesh. So let's go ahead and do that real quick here. Go back to the origin. And these are, let's see here, they're going to be left stitch and right stitch. So let's go ahead there. Okay, I want to see where the belts are by comparison, so I just want to maybe put all the belts. Well, maybe not all the belts. I just need the sword belt. So I'll just go here and just kind of put that guy there so I can see. Okay, so this is the flap that it's kind of falling through right here. Okay, I'm going to speed through this here real quick, so I'm just going to paint the value on the underside here. I'm going to have to limit here, so undo there. Just pick a few points and grow the selection just so I can paint that little area there underneath. Do the same thing for the attribute on the right side. Grow some points on the other side to limit the paint selection, and just kind of grow that over there. This way we have stitches kind of holding that little flap together. It'll help with our belt penetration so I don't have to shape fix everything. Okay, so I will toss this onto the simulation queue as version 34 and see what I get. Meanwhile, I am going to start simming in tandem with that. I'm going to go ahead and add the cloak to this. So I've gotten to a point now I've been doing this in parallel, so the other videos that are coming, you've seen we've built this part, so that's in the next section. But in the meantime, we've been kind of trying to do this all in parallel. You would normally build those while you're simulating like I'm doing here. Alright, so we're going to make this version 34. And we're going to add in the cloak. So I'm going to make some room here. Add in another object merge. I'm going to speed this section up a little bit here, so I want the cloak to come in here, so let's go ahead and find the cloak out. I realized here I haven't created one yet, so, or I did, and it's just not named right. It's named undershirt 2, so we'll rename it to cloak. Come back over here, and we'll object merge that item in. So we've got the out cloak. It's going to take a second here for everything to evaluate. Okay, so everything is here now. We're finally going to sim everything all at the same time. The one thing is I have to wait because my current sims I'm running another belt sim right now, and it's taking up a lot of my CPU. So I don't have that much RAM left. I only have 20 gig of RAM, and I know that will take too much. So I have to either kill that previous setup, which is version 33. I guess that's the best thing to do, is just do that. It doesn't look like I'm actually going to have enough RAM to run this, so I'm actually going to let this other version finish out because there might be some other problems further on down the line during the squat that I have not planned for. So I'm going to wait for that sim before I start wasting energy on another one, because I might need to fix something along the way. So I'm going to go ahead and be patient, maybe try and buy some more RAM. Okay, at this point in the training video, We are very near the end. I've actually recorded all the other training videos, point deforming, returning the geometry back, but I have to keep going back and fixing these belts because they are kind of causing me problems in various areas. So as I'm doing all the other training videos, I'm running iterations back and forth, and this is the kind of thing that you're going to run into, where everything looks great one sim, and then the next sim, it doesn't look so great. So I'm at this point where this is actually happening now with this character and this asset, and these look really bad, so I might actually have to go back and sim. I have another sim running right now, which is version 55, and this looked pretty good. So at some point I might just do some cache blending where I'm going to keep the cloak of one sim, keep the belts of another sim, keep the top shirt of another sim, and blend those caches into be a final cache. So I'll have several loaded at the same time, and that seems like the best way to go at this point, because I turned this version up to look really good for the belts, but now the cloak looks pretty bad. So I'll use the cloak from another version. I'm going to use this, and I'll explain this in a later video. I just wanted to say that I've pretty much finished all the training videos at this point. I'm just iterating on these belts, and we're just going to keep going back and forth. Eventually I'll get to a point where I just have to stop, and I'm going to have to shape fix whatever we have, but I want to get the sim set up to a point where it can handle a lot of different setup operations, and it's not going to cause problems. That way, if I were to use this setup for production and I had any different kind of mocap or animation, it would look pretty good 85 to 75 to 85% of the time, and then I could spend my energy shape fixing the areas that really need it. So I'm going to end this part about the belt setup, and then the final belt setup I will just include an addendum video talking about all the troubles I had to go through for this.